Hey, I'm Scott. If we don't know each other, glad that you're here. Something about me is that one of my musical interests, in terms of genres of music I like, is like the early 2000s, like emo punk, emo core genre of music. That's like one of my little musical happy places. Whatever musical style you're into, whichever one you like, it has with it attached weird subcultures and weird idiosyncrasies, whether it's people wearing rhinestones and calling it, fashion or whatever, you've got some weird idiosyncrasies. In that genre of emo punk, emo core, one of the idiosyncrasies of that era was absurdly long song titles that often had little to do with the actual song, right? And some of it was kind of a gag, right? Because it had to scroll across an iPod Nano or not fit on the back of a CD, and it was kind of like a way to sort of stick it to just that reality, right? So what I'm going to do, in the interest of this series, in the interest of the mood that you're already kind of catching from our series, I'm going to give you the title of something that might be a song from that genre of musical time, an emo punk song from the early 2000s-ish time, or it might not be. And you're going to delineate if it is or it isn't by giving me a thumbs up, or you can give me a thumbs down, or you can just sit there with your arms crossed and wait for it all to be over too. That's perfectly fine as well. All right, but we're going to do a couple, all right? So here's the first one. Here's one. What happens if I can't check my MySpace when we get there? What happens if we can't check my MySpace when we get there? Certainly some of you said that out loud to someone. If you think that's an emo song from the early 2000s, thumbs up, thumbs down if not. It is. It is. That's a real song title from the band Attack Attack. You can also see in their band photo more of the idiosyncrasies of that era. All right, number two, here we go. Talk not to me of blasphemy, man. I'd strike the sun if it insulted me. If you think that sounds like an emo song title from the early 2000s, thumbs up, thumbs down if not. If you said thumbs down, you are correct, because that's Captain Ahab from Moby Dick. That is Herman Melville. All right. So, although I thought that was a good one. Last one. All right. They perched on their stilts, pointing and daring me to break custom. They perched on their stilts, pointing and daring me to break custom. Thumbs down if no, thumbs up if yes. This one is a yes. This is the band Seosin. All right. So I'm gonna go 3 for 3. We didn't have any 3 for 3s first hour. There you go. Emo core. Right. Awesome. Well done. Okay, so City of Ruin, City of Refuge is not an emo song, but we've got time, right? Songwriters, get after it. If you want some guest vocals, I'll throw myself in the lot. I'll scream and whine and something else, whatever. We'll call it noise. We'll call it music. We'll call it emo, right? City of Ruin, City of Refuge is not an emo song, but it is an emo vibe, isn't it? Right? And it's kind of the Lent vibe. It's a time, the whole genre is kind of rooted in honesty and heartbreak and big feelings and existential things, and that's all very Lent. And even up to the fact that emo records will often have an epic final track. See Jimmy Eat World's Clarity, Goodbye Sky Harbor for more information, right? We are going from this feeling of Ash Wednesday to an epic final track as we move from the Garden of Eden to God's Garden City in Revelation 21:22. Okay, and we're gonna have some time to reflect upon all of these feelings in our time together. Now, Lent. Let me just dip into this for a minute, because some of you were like, "Hey, I Googled Baltimore non-denominational church when I was looking for a church to be part of, and you all don't say you're Catholic or you're not sort of some traditional thing. That's kind of why I like it here. And what I would say to you is, I think there's things important to learn from the people who have come before us, right? Historically speaking, there have been seasons, and there's some very, very, very ugly seasons in the life of the body of believers over the course of history that we should learn from, but also some things we should learn from and sort of practices that are helpful to preparing us for certain seasons. And Lent dates to the 7th century. You're not going to find Lent in the Bible. Thou shalt on the 4th day abstain from caffeinated beverages until ye so forth desires to caffeinate again. You're not going to find that. What you'll find in the 7th century is Western church leaders trying to reflect upon the season of preparation before Jesus' public ministry, the 40 days in the desert, the temptation and the preparation there, and kind of reflecting on that time of being presented with our attachments, being presented to putting some things into the soil of dependence, like fasting and prayer, that sort of hearken for the next thing. And that really has been where kind of Lent came from. Like, what is the 40 days of prayer and fasting and reading? It's sort of a way to sort of get to Easter and go, hey, this ain't about the ham. This isn't about like a family and some colored eggs. Like, there's something that we've been thinking about that we can really understand the depths of celebration in. And so if you got our email this past week, you will see that there's a variety of on-ramps that you can jump in with us in, from like service projects to special offerings to opportunities. Now, look, this is not for the Cool Kids Club or the Gold Stars for Jesus. This is really about having a season to prepare and reflect upon this theme that we're going to think about. And the way that we're going to think about it on our Sundays together is thinking about it through the lens of this image of the city. The city is going to be analogous to us to the human condition. We're going to think about the good, the bad, the ugly by looking at cities in the Bible. And today, we'll look at Cain's city, the city of Enoch, and see both the ruin and the refuge there. To help us with this now, we've got to think about Genesis 1 to 3. And we'll do that by... We mentioned a little bit of this Wednesday. So if you were with us Wednesday, this is going to be a little bit of review, okay? Genesis aims to answer the question of where we come from and what is it like to be us. Now, it aims to do that not in the way you often want it to do that. You want it to do that like it's kind of like a history textbook. On this day, on the 7th of the whatever, this is the thing that got made. And sometimes you want it like a science textbook. Like, this is how it all came to be and the order of things. And so you read Genesis 1 and 2, and you read Hebrew poetry, and you read things that are oral tradition captured in writing, and you go like, yeah, that doesn't read like a science book or a history book. And no, it doesn't. It's not trying to be those things. It is trying to tell us, though, something anthropologically, something sociologically about us and who we are and where we've come from. So Genesis 1 is the idea that God made the world from nothing. Genesis 2 gives us this image, this narrowing of like Adam and Eve, naked, unashamed, living in a cultivated beauty and oneness with God themselves, one another, and creation. They are not two half people until they found one another. They are a complementary whole in who they are in God, but there's a beautiful oneness, and this call to cultivate is not like sit by the pool, sipping pina coladas, listening to bad music. Like do you ever get to the end of a great workday and just feel satisfied? Because you like did something like important in the world, like that sense of cultivation. Ooh, that's right where it is. That's right. That cultivation is right out of Genesis 2. Genesis 3, it all falls apart. We got a talking snake. Again, Genesis isn't interested in answering some of the questions, right? But it's asking better questions. Like this thing that Adam and Eve were called to steward over, creation, is now leading them to betray the oneness that they've encountered in God, one another, in their creation. They're deceived. They hide. God says, "Where are you?" Not because God doesn't know where they are and is terrible at hide and seek, because God is trying to help them see themselves. Now we have the fracture, but also the promise. You're exiled from the garden, but I'm making a way for restoration. Genesis 3:15. It's going to be the scarlet thread that goes all the way to Easter Sunday. But in Genesis 4, this mess gets systematized because Adam and Eve start having kids. Right? Now Cain's wife has got some weird in-laws that brought down, society, and that's a pass the gravy, please, right? Like it's a weird reality. And again, Genesis 4 isn't interested in telling us who these other people were that Cain married into, but is going to give us a little bit of a sense of the human condition again. How is it going to do it? It's going to do it by tying back into what Genesis has already told us in 1 through 3. And I'm not trying to make you a Bible nerd, but this is important, right? Because you need to see this reality, okay? So you've got Cain and Abel who are now worshiping, like they're offering sacrifice. God is still contending for the hearts of creation. Cain's sacrifice is not acceptable. We're not told why. Any reason we give would be speculative, but it's not an acceptable sacrifice. There is a feeling that Cain has about being confronted with that information. Look at what it says. If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it. That tail end of verse 7 should if we were looking at it in Hebrew and we all spoke ancient Hebrew, we'd go, wait, that's a call back to a thing mankind was supposed to be stewarding. This anger is being personified like an animal that you're supposed to tame and domesticate and rule over. But Cain doesn't treat it like that. Cain treats it the way we often treat our anger, like I'm ticked off and I'm gonna do something about it. And he does. He kills his brother. The text tells us he puts his brother into the ground. So this thing that God created out of the ground, life being created out of the ground, is now Cain is taking life and putting it back into the ground. Do you see the reversal? Do you see the reversal of like God now offering, God is saying, what have you done? Listen, your brother's blood cries out from the ground. And just like his parents, what does he do? In this case, he doesn't blame his wife because he doesn't have one yet. But he deflects, just like daddy. Just like daddy. Like classic deflection. I don't know, am I my brother's keeper? This conversation continues. Cain is troubled. We get to verse 12, and what do we see in Cain? That he's a restless wanderer at this point. He's a restless wanderer at this point, and just like we've seen in Genesis 3, there is like, hey, God is going to make a way to like deal with the thing. So God says, I'm going to put a mark on you. Anyone that harms you is going to be dealt with 7 times over. We're not told what this mark is, but there's basically the image that's being given to Cain is like, trust me for your provision, for your protection, kind of like like, here we go, like, yes, you did a bad thing, but I'm still contending for you, and, we're going to go on with it. And what happens in response? Cain builds a city. Cain builds a city. Now, what is a city to you? A city to you might be a city, like what makes a city and not a town or a borough or whatever else? I'm sure some of you have like a very specific literal definition, right? But you have like also soft definitions. Like, does a city have a professional sports team? Does a city need to have an airport, particularly an airport with a Chili's too? Like, is that what constitutes as like a real city? Does it need a skyscraper? In the Hebrew scriptures, a city is a place with walls. So don't get it twisted. Don't get it like, don't go down the road of like, well, now how did he build? He didn't build Mexico City, okay? He didn't build Mexico City. He's got a couple like dwellings that he put a wall around, and that is the city. It is the city of Enoch. And so again, building, cultivating, but he's not offering that to God. He's offering it to his lineage and line. He names this city Enoch. Now look, cities have been named far stupider things than that for far stupider reasons. But it's telling us something about the human condition. Remember, Genesis is trying to tell us something about God and about us. It's a time to reflect on the city as it relates to our search for security. You don't blame Cain now having an actualization and awareness of how like bleak and dark the world is, right? He's done something where people he knows the human condition. He just killed his brother. He also is aware now that this like creation he's going to be stewarding over could like harm him at this point, right? I was watching an old episode of Survivor, and when it was shot in Africa, where they're like their camp at night, like they can hear like the predators around the camp, like just growling in the evening. You know, they're all sleeping with one eye open. Like on a practical urban planning level, you don't blame Cain one bit for like making a move to like take a wife, have a kid, and like build a little protection for himself. But just like the M. Night Shyamalan movie, The Village, you know, when you build something out of your trauma and you build something out of your pain, the one thing you neglect to mention in your attempt to build this utopia is you take that brokenness into the walls of the city with you. And so the city, in this attempt for security, a security without God, is a reflection and a call to us to consider that very subtle, that very fine line between where we are a person made in God's image to cultivate and innovate, and where we will take that cultivation and innovation and try to build a name for ourselves. And isn't this so subtle? How like something like your ambition and ability to get things done can like bring a particular kind of beauty and cultivation reflective of Genesis 2, but could also be like a monument to yourself and to your line and to your own security. This is very Lenten, right? Like this kind of reflection requires you to actually sort of slow down and check your motives. It might not just be as simple as, did I do a bad thing today? Like, I think that's the reality for Cain, is that he's building a lineage and a line, but it's all a deflection from an actual thing that he's trying to heal. And so the question maybe for our reflection is like, where are we trying to build in places where God is inviting us to be healed? Where are we trying to, like some of us move to the city to get away from all the oppressive junk in our small town, and I might actually understand that a little bit. There's this thing that was written years ago, I've referenced it several times in several sermons, where this guy was like breaking up with the city of Chicago. It was some grandstanded, like, Chicago's not doing it for me anymore. It was so self-serving. It was so self-seeking, right? It was so like, I'm moving to this city because it's a better place than Chicago. I don't have a hot take on Chicago, but the whole posture of it was gross. But that posture exists in me too, right? Where do I leverage the creation around me to build a security for myself where dependence on God is not something I have to deal with or think about or confront? And where am I trying to build my way out of the things that only God can heal? Why fast? Why pray? Why look at attachments? Because that's a whole thing. It is. And it's very subtle. So, if Cain is unable to like prevent if he's unable to protect his city from himself, one of the things he's also unable to do is, in all of his attempts to keep God out, he can't. Like, he's made in God's image. He's made to have longings that sort of only find themselves fulfilled in the sense of like aligning to what God is doing in the world. And I would argue that it exists in you too, right? So here in the city of Enoch, we start to see culture making happen. And we see, much like with the culture making around us, it's both beautiful and broken. All right, check out verse 18, right? We have Enoch's line, down the line, all the way to Lamech, right? Lamech married two women, one named Ada, the other Zillah. Ada gave birth to Jabal. He was the father who lives in tents and raises livestock. So now in this city, We have the raising of livestock. We have the cultivation of like raising cattle, right? Good thing, right? Contributes to the greater good. It cares for and feeds the creation and the land. Okay, thumbs up to that culture making. Here, it's read on. His brother's name was Jubal. He was the father of all who play stringed instruments and pipes. So now we got some music. Now we got a soundtrack to whistle to as we go. That's good. And a little, I can play it on the pipe, and here we go. And then we got Zillah, who had a son named Tubal-Cain, who forged all kinds of tools out of bronze and iron. Right? So we have the forging of metal. Like we have the cultivation, the very cultivation happening in this city, even though he's building like a monument to his own security. Like it doesn't stop the innovation and the things that like happen in God's image. But there's another part to that too, right? If we go back and we look at 23 and 24, Lamech, who said to his wives, Adah and Zillah, listen to me, wives of Lamech, hear my words. First of all, pay attention to the fact that now we're saying wives, right? Women are not now helpers from the ground, like shoulder to shoulder, stewarding creation. Now we have women as essentially property to their husband, and that's just kind of assumed, okay? Listen to what he says. I have killed a man for wounding me, a young man for injuring me. If Cain is avenged 7 times, then Lamech 77 times. Why does this matter? Why did Cain build Enoch? For security, to keep out the bad things. But now the retaliation is coming out of the city. Now we got the equivalent of some leader like rage tweeting at 3 a.m. for anyone that's coming at them. You come at me, I'm coming at you 7 times over. It's manipulating the promise for the security of Cain. We don't have time to dive into it. But someone in the New Testament talked about a 70 times 7 thing. And if you're wondering where that came from, here it is. So Lamech there's actually, if you look at the Hebrew, he actually uses this, I don't know, you don't have to be a parent to get bruised by a toddler. I used to, when Emery, my oldest, would get mad about something, she'd throw her head back and I'd get jacked in the face. I had to bruise it. Just being a parent, running into you in the hall, bruised. So Lamech and his little self-reflection about how tough he is if a kid bruises me, they lose their head. He's a real tough guy. He's a real tough guy. But what he's saying is now the city will be known. So that we're down the line of Cain. The thing that was built for self-protection is now used for retaliation and used to bolster. So is the city of Enoch a city of ruin, or is it a city of refuge? Yes. Is the city of Baltimore a city of ruin or a city of refuge? Yes. Is your heart a place of ruin or a place where God can bring refuge? Yeah, it is. And one of the things that just happens, is usually just a real practical example. Let's just say for a minute that some national leader or influencer has some hot take about Baltimore this year. It'll probably happen. What will the response be from the people that love the city of Baltimore? No, it's not. It's the greatest city in America. Have you read The Bench? Because we love the place, we'll throw a volley back at those people, or we'll have to qualify all the bad things. There's this weird tennis that gets played when we talk about places it's the worst. No, it's not. Yes, it is. No, it's not. And what we all know, but need to slow down enough to admit, is that to live in any city, to live in any suburb, to live in any rural area, to live any place where there are people made in God's image, is to experience the beauty and brokenness of creation. See the movie Village for more information, right? So that in a city like Baltimore, there's people that are trying to, they're innovating and they're curing and they're bringing life, but then this is also a place where people are taking life. It is a place where like really, really great things happen in this collision and creativity of neighbors, and then there's these really weird things happen, like just like the whole battle over parking spots and things like that when it gets snowy outside, right? Where we can see the best and the worst of the human condition collide. So Lent is not just saying, like, if you're in the gang of like, yeah, cities are terrible, and I'm just here like waiting my time before I find my little pristine piece of grass and get away from all you jokers. Like, what this text is telling you is that the beauty and the brokenness is going to follow you. It's going to follow you to that pristine little piece of land. It's going to follow you. It's amplified. It's turned up to 11 in a city center, to be sure. But if you think that this is God's attempt to dunk on the city, you're going to hate where this is going. And if you are a city dweller who's just like, man, these hacks that are out in the county, they just can't handle it. You are in denial about the juxtaposition of these two things. We have to embrace this tension. That the city is both people, a dense, dense expression of people made in God's image, dearly loved, who are also capable of being absolute tyrants to one another. And it's in that intersection, in that culture making, that the love of God is meeting us. The love of God is working with us, trying to unwind. I think Lent is a time where we confess that we just feel both of those things. The satisfaction of seeing your gifts be used, and then the fracture of someone exploiting your vulnerability. We sit in that, and we don't sit and ruminate in the shame of it, but we pay attention to how we medicate or try to escape it or try to like ignore the reality of it. And it's in there that God is trying to show us a better way. So if we close here, if you're the third of 3 children, you're going to love what happens next. The baby of the family kind of like creates a compelling alternative to what the first 2 have done. Adam made love to his wife again. She gave birth to a son and named him Seth, saying, God has granted me another child in place of Abel since Cain killed him. Seth also had a son, and he named him Enosh. And at that time, people began to call upon the name of the Lord. Here's the hope in what is maybe perhaps a bleaker message, that when we are seeing all the brokenness, and we're seeing all the mess, and we're seeing all the muddiness, God is granting another path. God is granting another path. And so that's what Lent draws us to, that from Genesis 3 all the way to Revelation 21 and 22, we see that there is, in this brokenness, not the opportunity to just throw your hands up and go, what can you do? What can any of us do? But for Seth and his line, there was granted in and amongst that mess an opportunity to see differently and call upon the name of the Lord again. Where there was sacrifice that was messed up, now there are people calling to the Lord again. And so we might live in the beauty of Baltimore. We might experience the brokenness of Baltimore, but there's a reminder that God is calling us to call upon the love that has been bestowed to us, right? Cain builds a city to ease the ache of exile. God invites us to stop building our own cover and call upon the one who meets us with mercy and who alone can turn exile into home, which is a theme we're going to see over and over, that God is going to come to broken places to meet us and to call us towards something new, even as we are present where our feet are. Communion lets us remember to take hold of the beauty of that invitation. Have you ever just been like hungry and don't want to admit it? Like you're kind of angsty and you're kind of mean, and someone around you that loves you is like, have you eaten? because you get a little cranky when you don't. You're like, that's not it, that's not it. But it might in fact be it. I think that's a beautiful analogy for, we're not denying that we're not going to be hungry again. We're not denying that. I think it's very easy to be like grandstandy and like, do you know how bad it is out there? I don't have time to. We need to feast upon the goodness of God. To remember that in this broken place, God has met us and called us toward beauty. To cultivate a new way to see ourselves and one another and the things that God is doing in the world. Communion reminds us to eat, to feast upon that, to not forget that God has made a way, and to call upon the Lord. If you're new to this room, the way we do communion, we do celebrate it weekly because more than anything I say, more than anything we sing, we want you to know that the grace and mercy of Jesus moved near. There's nothing magical at these stations. Like, it's not a magic snack. But there's value in to pause and to pray and to think about these things that we often will spend the rest of our week not thinking about at all. So may you feast upon the goodness of God. May you remember the love that Jesus has for you, and may it lead you to call upon the name of the Lord, even as we try to build our own security, and as we live in the beauty and brokenness of our moment. God, would you help us to remember who you are? Would you help us to remember who we are, that we are, it's not as simple as just, well, it's really terrible out there with all those folks. But to do that, not ruminating in shame, but to walk toward the life you offer. That's what we want to do these next several weeks. So we think about our choices for security. We think about the tensions of beauty and brokenness in our midst. But ultimately, we think about what you are calling us to and what you are inviting us toward through the work of Jesus, who is our hope. Amen.